that the ilah is the absolute one that we obey and commit to. That's what ilah means. And we talked about this in Allah and Rabb many times before, and the difference between that and Malik. But these are three different words that contain three different images in our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Rububiyyah, Al-Uluhiyyah, and the kingship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in between those three. So قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ مِنْ شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ. Now listen to this carefully. مِنْ شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ وَسْوَاسِ. The Arabic language, even the sound of a word can indicate the kind of, or the nature of the action. So was indicates what? Repetition. That shaitan is going to come and whisper. Whisper. But that whisper is going to be repetitive. It's not going to be once or twice. He's going to continue knocking on the same door. And if shaitan has found one or two gates from which he's able to enter into your life, he will continue using those doors. So if it's the door of ego, he will continue to knock on that door. If it's the door of lust, he will continue knocking on that door. If it's the door of affirmation and wanting to be appreciated, if it's the door of pride, whatever, if it's the door of ego, whatever door it may be, the door of temptation with wealth, temptation with women, temptation with men, whatever door it may be, he will continuously whisper and wait for the right opportunity. مِنْ شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ. Now, khannas means the one who quickly retreats. So yes, shaitan is persistent, but also is weak in not being able to stand against the name of Allah when it's mentioned. Sometimes we paint shaitan to be very powerful, but shaitan has no power. Shaitan suggests, we are the ones that manifest, either agreeing or disagreeing. But min sharri al-waswasi al-khannas, Allah is reminding us, yes, he's persistent, but at the same time he's khannas, he's quick to retreat, quick to run away. One, وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ جَعَلْنَا بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ حِجَابًا مَسْتُورًا. When you say the name of Allah or you recite the Quran or do dhikr, Allah actually puts a barrier between you and anything that does not believe, including evil. So when you say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, shaitan retreats. And that's why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, when one of you falls, don't say, curse be shaitan, like that, when people curse. He said, don't do that. Because that makes shaitan's head bigger. It fuels the ego. Rather say, Allahu Akbar, Astaghfirullah, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Do dhikr. When one of us gets angry, that's a door for shaitan to enter. And that's why the ulama will tell you, there are days where the best ibadah to do is just to restrain yourself and not let yourself out into the world. When you're having one of those days, really bad days, where there's very little self-control, a lot of anger, whatever it may be, at that day, it's best not to go out and help or just be you. Give yourself some time. Relax. And don't put yourself in temptation or in the path of temptation from shaitan. So قُلْ أَعُوذُ رَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ مِنْ شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ. When Aisha heard this ayah, الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ, the one who whispers bad thoughts into the hearts of humans, she said, Ya Rasulullah, does every one of us, and when she heard the ayah, that every being has a qareen. Ya Rasulullah, qareen means a partner from an associate from the jinn that we don't see. And that associate whispers bad things to us. Just like we have angels that whisper good, families that whisper good, communities that whisper good, a lot of things that whisper bad. We also have an associate from the jinn that whispers bad to us. So when Aisha radiallahu anha asked the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ya Rasulullah, every one of us has a qareen? He said, yes, Ya Aisha. He said, Ya Rasulullah, even you? He said, yes, even me. I had a qareen who used to whisper bad, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the strength to be able to live a good life, and through that good life, I gave da'wah to this qareen, and this qareen became Muslim and now only whispers good things to us. So can you imagine being so persistent upon good that you can actually call your qareen to goodness, and your qareen ends up actually being only a source of goodness in your life? Can Can you imagine? And the other story is the story of Umar. Shaitan used to see Umar walk in one path, he would leave and go to the other path. Why? Because Shaitan would say, if I whisper bad, Umar will do the exact opposite. So I'm basically defeating myself. The more bad ideas I give him, the exact opposite he will do. So it's better not to whisper. So I just leave him alone. And in these two examples, of course none of us are going to be like Umar or the Prophet ﷺ, but at least in striving to really resist the temptation of Shaitan, we can get to a point where we're able to restrain ourselves, and Shaitan doesn't feel comfortable whispering, or Shaitan doesn't feel powerful in being able to dominate or being able to insinuate or suggest or whisper into our lives. And then he said to her ﷺ that yes, that the Shaitan can actually get to a point in having power over someone if the person gives power to Shaitan, where it's as if the Shaitan is running through their bloodstream. Can you imagine? It comes to a point where it gets to a point where it's, evil becomes intrinsic to you. It becomes flowing within you. So we have the capacity to sink to that worst position, and we have the capacity to really rise to the best of positions. So من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس. Who do I take refuge from? I take refuge from any whisper into me from the evil of myself, the evil of my nafs, which is catalyzed by Iblis and Shaitan. من الجنة والناس. From any kind of evil, that, the evil thoughts, the evil whispers, whether it's from the jinn or whether it's from the nas. Because I can have people whispering bad things to me, bad friends that say do this and do that. So that's the nas. And I can have the evil that I don't see, the jinn. Jinn meaning I don't see, like mijan, hidden, janeen, the fetus, hidden, majnoon, someone who cannot see clearly, compromised in their ability to see. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, take refuge in Him from that kind of evil that you can see, from the kind of evil that you cannot see. And those two evils are the evils that whisper into the hearts of the human being. Can you imagine a thought that is whispered to a point where it becomes what? It becomes a part of what you are, a part of you, a part of what you desire, a part of how you orient and define yourself, as we've seen, subhanAllah. May Allah protect us. Now, these are the two surahs that we want to reflect on. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam encouraged, of course, his companions to recite them often, to recite them in the morning, to recite them in the evening, to recite them when they go into the market, to recite them when you're doing the adhkar of the sabah, the adhkar of the masa, and in many, many other parts of your life. And for those of you who may be going through difficulty, I want to just add one point. We've been doing psychotherapy and counseling in the community for quite some time. And I will tell you that, subhanAllah, sometimes you have very different schools. You have the neuroscientists, school, who will say that any anomaly or psychological abnormality can be explained through chemicals. And then you have on the other side, extreme psychotherapy that will try to make sense of any abnormality or an anomaly within human behavior by saying it goes back to the defining years in somebody's life. You go back to the way that they were raised, father, mother, parental relationships, right? That most of it can be rooted in that. And at the end of the day, there is a chemical side, right? There's no denying that your neurochemicals will impact your mood, will impact your anxiety and depression. There is definitely a nurturing aspect, your family, how you grew up, how you're raised, the trauma in your life. So both are important. But there's one aspect that unfortunately, many people on those sides try to ignore, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And that is the aspect of ghaib and faith and iman. Because number one, there are a lot of things that we cannot see, like the whispers of shaitan. You cannot deny that shaitan will actually contribute to your anxiety. It's such an easy, like if shaitan sees anxiety, shaitan will use the anxiety. If shaitan sees any weakness or vulnerability, shaitan will continue to. So shaitan may look at that vulnerability and really accentuate or accelerate or catalyze its development, its depression. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam literally told us, shaitan looks for moments of weakness, where you're anxious, where you're sad, where you're depressed. And that's why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says, "Oh Allah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika من العجز والكسل من الهون من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. I take refuge in you from any kind of limitation or weakness, even from depression, from anxiety. In different ahadith, in different ayat of the Quran, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Don't let your anxiety and stress and weakness take over, like to play into that narrative of, I'm a victim, everything. No, rather take back the narrative, take back your life, take back your mind. So there is an element of shaitan that we cannot dismiss. Neurobiology, not going to really be able to, address that, right? If you're doing Islamic integrated psychotherapy, maybe you'll be able to address that somewhat. And there's no doubt, and believe me when I say this based on my own personal experience in counseling and in other, interactions with the community, that Iman is one of the biggest protective factors against mental health crisis, and it's one of the biggest indicators of fast and quick recovery. That your Iman will really help you. And so when you're trying to understand what's going on to you, remember to look at it holistically. Yes, there's chemistry. Yes, there is a biological aspect. Yes, there is a nurture, psychological aspect. But yes, of course, at the same time, there's a religious aspect. There's the ghaib, there's the unseen. And all of those things are working together. Which is why, subhanAllah, more and more people are moving towards, bringing those three or different areas together in therapy, in healing. And it's important for the next phase of healing and therapy. And I know some of you here who are, doing your psychotherapy and counseling degrees, and others who are in the, field. It's important to try to combine those approaches and to master the languages and the logic of those different disciplines to be able to provide holistic healing for our communities. And that's part of our trajectory to continuously develop as Muslims in the best way possible. Now, to take that and to transition into a good, inshallah, a positive, inshallah, end to, Juz Amma, I wanted to, subhanAllah, when we're talking about hijrah, this is the time in which the Nabi ﷺ migrated from, Mecca to Medina. And when the Muslims were deciding at the time of Umar, the Muslims did not have a calendar until the time of Umar. When it was the time of Umar, they decided to sit down and come up with a calendar. So they're like, okay, what's our year 1 going to be? Or what's point 0 going to be? When are we going to start counting? Are we going to start counting from the Ghar, from when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received revelation? Or are we going to start counting from when the Prophet was born? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Where are we going to count from? And they decided they're going to count from the moment that Islam settled in Medina, from the hijrah. Because the hijrah indicates the migration. You're leaving the place where Islam is not practiced, where you're limited in your practice and manifestation of Islam, and you're going to the place where you can practice Islam freely and express Islam freely. So the hijrah indicates when you take Islam from a personal, right? A personal thing that you do in your own house, and it becomes a communal manifestation. It becomes the language and the logos, meaning the logic, the language of the community. That's what the hijrah indicates. Now there are so many beautiful stories, One ayah in the Quran is very, very powerful, and a beautiful moment in the Prophet Muhammad's life. There was this old man, and there's an ayah in the Quran. Most of us know the ayah, وَمَنْ يُهَاجِرْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يَجِدْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُرَاغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعَةً وَمَنْ يَخْرُجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ مُهَاجِرًا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ يَدْرُكْهُ الْمَوْتِ فَقَدْ وَقَعَ أَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, the first part of the ayah, whoever migrates for the sake of Allah and leaves bad behind, Allah will allow that person to experience vastness, يجد مراغما, lots of opportunities, وسعة, and vastness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if you're in a place where you're oppressed, you cannot practice your faith fully, migrate, leave for the sake of Allah. And by the way, that doesn't mean like only a land. If you're in a place like a job where you're not comfortable manifesting your deen, leave that job. If you're in a relationship where you're not comfortable manifesting your deen, leave that relationship. If you're in a friendship group, if you're in this area, wherever you are where you're not comfortable expressing your faith publicly, and that expression is not welcomed, or worse, persecuted, it becomes an obligation upon you to look for a place where you are free to practice your faith. And Allah promises that if you were to do that, Allah would give you vastness and abundance. Now there's a beautiful story of an older man He was living in Mecca. And this man was a senior. So a lot of the people left the community, became Muslim, and they left Mecca and they went to Medina. But he continued to say, look, I have my roots and my family and everybody here. This is where I grew up and I don't want to leave. And everybody left, all the Muslims left, to the point where he was like one of the last few Muslims living among the people in the Mecca who were not practicing Islam. So finally the ayah was revealed. وَمَنْ يُهَاجِرْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يَجِدِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُرَاغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعًا. He decided to, he's getting sick, he's getting old. He didn't want to die among people who would not know how to bury him, how to pray janazah on him. He wanted to die among his family, among the Muslims. So he decided to go and travel from Mecca to Medina. But because he was alone and nobody else was with him at the time, and he was older in that age, subhanAllah, he took that journey alone, and unfortunately he got very, very sick on that journey, to a point where he was not able to move anymore. So the last thing that he did, imagine this, the last thing that he did was he put his hand together like this. He put his hand together like this, and he raised it to as high as he could, and he mumbled a few words. He was by himself in the middle of the desert. He mumbled a few words, and then he fell and passed away. And Nabi ﷺ was in Medina, and all of a sudden tears came down his eyes. Jibreel came to him and he told him the story of this man. This older man, an elder in the community, who deferred, but then decided to give up for the sake of Allah. But by the time he made that decision, he was so old, he was so sick, that he could not make the journey all the way to Medina. So with the last energy that he had, he raised his hand like this, and he said, "Ubayyuruka ya Rasulullah. I'm coming to give you that pledge of allegiance, O Messenger of Allah. In case that I don't make it all the way to Medina, to give that to you in person, I'm doing it now." And then he passed away. And so the Prophet Muhammad sallam, he saw this, Jibreel came and showed him that vision, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayah, وَمَنْ يَخْرُجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ مُهَاجِرًا إِلَى اللَّهِ. And whoever leaves his home migrating for the sake of Allah, whoever leaves behind migrating for the sake of Allah, ثُمَّ يُدْرِكُهُ الْمَوْتِ, and then death overcomes that person, فَقَدْ وَقَعَ أَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. His reward has become mandatory, almost guaranteed in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that that person did not make it to Medina, could not live amongst the Muslims, but because of the intention, even though it was so delayed, Allah still forgave him and accepted his intention because he took that path. He took that path. And the ulama, when they talk about the new year, when they talk about the hijrah, they mention that it's important for all of us, regardless how deep we've become implicated in any haram. And subhanAllah, you see amongst you, I'm sure many of us know, Muslims who have businesses that are engaging in haram. Businesses that are running fully on interest and riba and haram upon haram. Businesses that are selling, subhanAllah, lottery tickets or selling alcohol, right? Clear haram things that we should not be engaging in. People who are in friend groups that if you were to die, none of them would know how to pray janazah upon you. Imagine it's time to pray janazah on you and you come to the masjid and all of your friends are coming to the masjid, the group you chilled with, and they don't know how to make wudu. So they come into the imam saying, "We haven't prayed ever in our life. Can you please teach us how to make wudu because we want to honor this friend of ours?" Like if this is, and alhamdulillah, everybody's at a different stage in their life. But for us who are masjid goers and trying to take this deen a little bit more seriously, whatever haram that you have in your life, whether it's a haram of the eye, a haram of the tongue, a haram of the ear, a haram of the heart, a lust, a habit, a relationship, a commitment, a place, a job, a network that has been reducing your deen and not really benefiting the ummah in any way, shape or form, right? Taking from you and not really giving, and it doesn't have any purpose except that it's been sucking the deen out of you, your iman out of you, and you're struggling to replenish it. Give it up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the best way to celebrate the new year. That is very practical. You don't have to light some candles and burn some scents and do some dances and loop-to-loops, and that's not how we celebrate as Muslims. We celebrate by internally changing, by making and taking steps that will actually do what? actually make our life better. That's how we truly celebrate. That's how we receive the new year. That's how we appreciate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's gift of life. He's given us this gift of life. But this is the, if we're going to take the end, inshallah, of Surah or Juz Amma, I would, leave it with this. Now, I know some of you have, explicitly mentioned this sometime, and I also want to mention this very quickly. In the last few moments before Maghrib comes in, one of the biggest reasons why people fail in their iman, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, in his Da' wa Dawa, Kitab al-Da' wa Dawa, the illness and the cure, he mentions, and one of the biggest reasons why people slip after reaching strong highs and fall after reaching strong highs is the sin of the eye. And we're in the summertime, and we're talking about hijrah, and if I can talk about one thing that is really, really pervasive in the community, it's the sin of the eye. I remember in Ramadan, one of the shaykh was saying that this is little shaitan. It is little shaitan. Because you have TikTok and you have Instagram, and we become conditioned to scroll after scroll after scroll after scroll, and our eyes, which are windows to our soul, are exposed to all of these images which are rewiring our brains. Rewiring what we desire, how we think, what we perceive to be valuable, and what we perceive to be acceptable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I want to just share with you one of the old Arabic poets that was mentioned. كل الحوادث مبدأها من النظر ومعظم النار من مستخزر الشرر كم نظرة فتكت في قلب صاحبها فتك السهام بلا قوس ولا وتر والعبد ما دام ذا عين يقلبها في أعين الغيد موقوف على الخطر يسر مقلته ما ضر مهجته لا مرحبا بسرور عاد بالضرر. Very powerful words. I really encourage you to read the poetry, read these lines. But it says the following, if we translate: most of the evil begins with the gaze of the eye, and most of the hell comes from belittling the evil of the eye. We're talking about the evil eye in terms of like people look at you and give you hasad, but there's a greater effect of the evil of looking at the haram that is unlawful for you, and that ruins, that's self-sabotage. It ruins your deen, and it ruins your spirit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, كم نظرة فتكت في قلب صاحبها فتك السهام بلا قوس ولا وتر. How many looks have ripped the heart the same way that an arrow rips through its target, but there is no arrow present. Meaning that the eye, the gaze that you look at the haram, can actually rip your heart apart, rip your iman apart, the same way that an arrow rips through its target without you even knowing. And people continue to give their eyes what seems to give them temporary pleasure, only in the long term to actually have really, really, really long-term harm. And the hadith of this are many, and I'm going to leave you with one thing. We know the story of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, in which the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told him, Ya Ali, lower your gaze, or lower from your gaze, because the first look is for you and the second look is against you. And we know in the time of Hajj, when the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was with the companions, and they were performing Hajj, so the best place, the best company, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is there, and one of the cousins of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the brother of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the same family from the Abi Talib family, he was with Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when a young woman approached to ask a question. And you can imagine she's wearing her hijab, she's fully covered. But sometimes what happens if you're traveling, you know this, when you go for Hajj, when you go for Umrah, when you're traveling on a long plane, sometimes your hijab goes back a little bit unintentionally, your hair becomes exposed, maybe your hijab is lower and your neck gets exposed, a little bit unintentionally, maybe more skin than you intended could be exposed. So whatever he saw, Allahu A'lam what he saw, the hadith doesn't mention out of respect for the sister, but he saw something about the sister that caught his attention. So he was looking at her, the way that a person looks when they're infatuated. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam pushed his face away. Then he looked again, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam pushed his face away. Then he looked again, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam pushed his face away. And he told him and told the companions, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam commenting, I did not want for shaitan to put any fitna or to, build on the fumes of evil. I did not want any fitna to happen between them. Shut that door completely. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we're migrating away from any haram and as we're entering the new year, to give up anything that will distract this peace of mind and peace of heart. And most of it begins with the eye. Most of it begins with the eye. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to delete the apps that are distracting us. I don't think any good Muslim, alhamdulillah, I did not ever download TikTok. I don't think it's appropriate for a Muslim to have TikTok. I use Instagram once in a while. Maybe I'll end up using TikTok when it becomes more mainstream. I'm not saying I won't, but usually when it comes to these social media, I don't have the app on my phone. You download it when you need to post something, when you want to engage with whatever, and then you remove it. Because wallahi, even if it doesn't, even if you don't end up watching things that are not fully halal, you end up wasting so much time. And time is such a precious resource that it's not worth your time. And it's not worth removing that, glow from your face and nur from your face and iman from your heart for this. It's not worth it. And when you do that, you will really feel that tranquility within and peace within that cannot be, subhanallah, given or equated with any value. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of you. May Allah accept from all of us. Jazakumullah khairan, barakallah fikum. And you can monitor, inshallah, the WhatsApp group for when we're going to be discussing next, which is Surah Maryam, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, subhanakallah bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Test. Bismillah. Bismillah.